Right, it is 5:30. If we could please stand for the acknowledgement of country, diversity, commitment, service acknowledgement and prayer. The City of Victor Harbor acknowledges the Ramangeri and the Narrangeri people, the traditional custodians of the land and surrounding waters that we live and work. We acknowledge their deep connection to country and we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. This respect is extended to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders that are present today. Angela, thank you.
The City of Victor Harbor is committed to diversity, equity and inclusion. We respect people of all ages, abilities, genders, sexualities, religions, beliefs, cultures and backgrounds.
Thank you. Councillor Kemp.
We recognise the brave individuals who have served and continue to serve our nation. We remember those who have lost their lives and paid the ultimate sacrifice to our country.
Thank you. And Councillor Mann.
Almighty God, we ask you to bless this council and allow it to be an agent of change to the people of this city and beyond. Direct and prosper its deliberations to the honouring of your name and the welfare of the people whom it serves. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please be seated. We have a number of apologies tonight. Councillor Karemba is on leave of absence until after the state election. Councillor Schofield is an apology, and also Councillor Burns is an apology. And I would like to say to all of those that are listening online, welcome. You'll see that we have got a new system in place for our streaming, and so the views may look slightly different, and your feedback around this would be greatly appreciated. And thank you to looking at this from home. We have one item adjourned from the previous meeting. And a current motion before council that was moved by Brayden, Mann and seconded by Councillor Schofield. And the motion is that the City of Victor Harbor, in recognition of the continued support provided to our community for 130-year-old Australian icon, provide one free horse tram ticket and one free behind the scenes experience per property in Victor Harbor upon being provided with a copy of the property's council rate notice to be used within a period of 1 year. You'll see that there's some commentary subsequent to adjournment in relation to that.
Mayor Jenkins.
Yes.
If I may, I'm happy to withdraw that motion, noting in the report the authorities taken that into account, and we're waiting to get their annual business plan, which incorporates this amongst all the things they've worked out at their strategic planning day. So I'm happy on that basis to wait till we receive that so it can be looked at from their strategic lens. I guess not, I wouldn't want to provide a reason that might impede them financially further, and I'd rather hear their feedback when that comes in a few months' time. So I'm happy to withdraw that one.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mann. Withdrawn that motion. We now move to 5.1, minutes of the previous meeting being the 27th of January, and the recommendation is that they be confirmed as true and accurate. Do I have someone to move that way, please? Councillor Henderson and Councillor Mackenzie seconding that. Are there any questions about the minutes? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. 5.2, minutes of the previous special council meeting, which was on the 5th of February. Moving that way, Councillor Schiller, and seconding, thank you, Councillor Mann. Any questions about those minutes? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We have 3 deputations tonight. Can I just let those that are giving a deputation remind you that your deputation is for 10 minutes. And that includes any questions that will be asked by members of the council. The first deputation is Clive Mountford from the Victor Harbor Goolwa Sea Rescue Squadron. Clive, if you'd like to come up. Thank you very much. I'm not quite sure what that, is somebody talking? No problem. Please begin your deputation.
Victor Harbour Galway Sea Rescue Squadron is an active and respected area of marine rescue in South Australia.
Can you turn your mic? Is your microphone on?
It's
Oh.
yes.
Thank you. Just if you speak into it, then people can hear at home. Thank you.
Okay. I'll start again. Victor Harbour and Galway Sea Rescue Squadron is an active and respected part of the South Australian Volunteer Marine Rescue Organisation. Our charter is to provide a timely marine search and rescue capability with our area of operation covering some 8,000 square kilometres in several areas. These areas are Lake Alexandrina, Galway Channel, Coorong, and a fairly large chunk of the Southern Ocean. These are on an attachment that you have, attachment 1. Areas 1 to 3 are serviced by 2 boats, which are housed at Galway. The 4th is serviced by 2 boats, one housed at headquarters in Murray Bridge. I think everyone knows Sea Legs. And the main vessel is housed at Kessel Road, Galway, because of a lack of suitable facilities near the Bluff boat ramp. The Bluff ramp is the only suitable ramp between Cape Jarvis and Cape Jaffa, distance of some 400 kilometres. So if we can't use the Bluff, it's a long drive. There are some issues relating to the draft boating strategy we'd like to address. One is the channel depth at low tide, additional temporary boat mooring facilities at the Bluff ramp, and the primary one is the response time for the main Victor Harbour vessel. Channel depth at the boat ramp at very low tide, we are actually unable to launch our main Southern Ocean rescue vessel. The nearest suitable ramp is Cape Jarvis, potentially adding several hours to the response. Very low tides occur each fortnight around new and full moons, and they can be as low as 0.1 metres, and we can't launch when they're down that low. The South Australian Boating Facility Advisory Committee guidelines recommend the depth of access to the channel to a boat ramp should be at least 1 metre below the lowest tide level. In any situation, no less than 0.75 metres, and unfortunately the Bluff doesn't meet this recommendation. We do recognise the Council has approached the appropriate Minister for funding to resolve this with our support, but its urgency could not be more critical, as extended response launch times exacerbate any emergency situation. And the inability to launch boats at Cape Jaffa was a factor in the recent double fatality just before Christmas. Additional boat mooring facilities at the Bluff. Again, this has been discussed. There are inadequate short-term mooring positions at the Bluff to cater for boat parking while owners are going to get their trailers or take their trailers to park. It's particularly apparent when Jagger Road overflow is being used. This forces boaties to moor on whatever is available, and they moor on the launch retrieve pontoons. If we have an emergency launch, these vessels block the ramp and we are delayed, waiting for skippers to come back. This delay could cost lives. Response times. Victor Harbour assets. We have 2 vessels designated for Victor Harbour. Sea Legs, it's a 7.1 metre rigid hull inflatable, and it's got wheels. It's located at our headquarters in Bridge Terrace, and we hop in it, drive across the sand into the water. And the average launch time is probably about 15 minutes from my text message to crews. It does, however, have a restricted operational area due to its survey. It's not our decision, it's AMS's decision. And that's shown on attachment 1, area 4A. It also can't be used in rough weather. It's just a bit dangerous and a bit wet. However, it is our rapid response vessel where appropriate. VH65, our other vessel here, it's been designed for the Southern Ocean. It's 8.6 metre aluminium. There's a picture on attachment 2. It's designed for the vagaries of the Southern Ocean and has a 50+ kilometre operational limit offshore. Launch time from Encounter Bay, 30 to 45 minutes. Launch time from where it is now, up to an hour and a half. We had a critical incident at Petrel Cove yesterday. 2 people in the water being swept west. Luckily, we were at the Bluff, just finished training exercise, so we were there. We got there very quickly. Fortunately, we weren't needed, but we got there. Our primary concern is VH65, our offshore vessel. It's stored at the compound at Kessel Road in Galway because of lack of suitable facilities near the Bluff. We've had the vessel 7 years and never had suitable accommodation. It was in temporary accommodation in Maud Street, but the lease was cancelled last year because of operational and WH&S concerns. Since then, we have been identifying sites adjacent to the ramp where we could potentially build a marine rescue centre. This would include drive-through facilities to house our vehicles and vessels, volunteer facilities, and a communications hub for training and search and rescue. The footprint of this would be approximately 25 metres by 15 plus entry and exit driveways. The recent light plane crash at Murray Mouth demonstrated the launch delay vessel for the vessel at Galway was at least 45 minutes, more than if it was housed at Encounter Bay. These delays are untenable where life at risk. So the locations we've sort of found on the right-hand side, entering the road to the Bluff area. That's 200 metres from the ramp. This site would be awesome. However, we do believe it would generate significant public opposition if a rescue centre was built there. That's on attachment 3. Our preferred location is some green space on the corner of Jagger Road and Rosemary Court, attachment 4. This space is about 500 metres from the ramp and ideally suited with easy access for our vessels. It also provides direct access to the Bluff ramp, enabling us to bypass queues waiting in Franklin Parade for access to the ramp. I have seen those several kilometres long in my time down here when things are very busy. Because of the slope of the block, we could place the facility on the low side, leaving an exposure of building of about 3 metres above the land level. The roof line would be below the tree line on the eastern side of the block and therefore really would not interrupt the view from the houses up the hill a little bit. The proximity of the Bluff ramp would also remove our reliance on the Eastern Marine facility. Just another thing that became apparent. The parcel of land, the other one, the third one is the parcel of land on the corner of Armstrong and George Main Road, 43 to 47 George Main. This is over 4 kilometres from the boat ramp. We enter from George Main, exit onto Armstrong would be feasible, but it would increase in response times by 10 to 15 minutes. Our primary objective is to bring the VH65 rescue vessel to a location which provides the best possible response time, where time saves lives. It is also important to note that we have access to existing grant monies and other finance, enabling us to construct our Marine Rescue Centre at little cost to the Council. Thank you.
Very well timed. Thank you very much. We've got a couple of questions there, Councillor Mann and then Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, and thank you very much for coming tonight. I guess one question that probably be relevant to some of the discussions Council are looking to have is around if sort of Council was to be able to deliver this, I was going to say shed, but I don't know, that's probably not the choice term.
Definitely not.
Yeah, that's it. The Maritime Rescue Centre, would there be as much of a need from your perspective for an Eastern Beach boat ramp facility in the near future?
No, I'm a definite no on that. We'd be so close to the water where we are, we wouldn't need to try and access somewhere else. It would take us longer to get to that boat ramp from where we are than it would to drive the boat around.
Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Clive, for that. Excuse me, just a couple of questions. I'm just wondering what, if any, support you get from the state government. And my second question is, how many call-outs do you have per year, roughly?
The first one is we have grant funds, that most of it, which we've had for 6 or 7 years. They came with the boat from state government, but they wouldn't be contributing anything to this exercise apart from that grant money. A couple of years ago, we were getting around average of 2 call-outs a week, up to the 100 a year. It's now down to 40 or 50 a year. We've had some incredibly bad weather down here, on long-term bad weather, so that's reduced the numbers. And I think critical incidents, probably 10 a year would be my guess. We had the plane crash, we had the one yesterday, we had the drowning, about 6 or 8 months ago, drowning off Granite Island, and surfers get in, striped windsurfers. So I reckon about 10 a year would be about right for what I call critical incidents. It's life at risk.
Thank you. One quick question, Councillor Kemp, because time is up.
Thank you. Thanks, Clive. Just a question on the Bluff boat ramp channel. That needs to be dredged every now and again. So how often, from your experiences, that the channel gets filled with silt and sands, which needs dredging? Because it hasn't been dredged for at least a year or two now.
I think it was dredged 2 or 3 years ago. I've only been down here for 7 years, so I'm still a newcomer. But it seems that a couple of years, the dredging only lasted a couple of years, and I'm no hydrologist, so I don't know whether it's the location of the groins, where they're putting the sand in the wrong spot when they dig it out. I know they run into rocks down there, which is a problem, but it could cause us severe grief simply because it has silted up.
Great. Thank you very much. And I do have a letter that we were sent to from the Honourable Emily Burke in relation to dredging, and she was she said she appreciates the concerns raised by the Victor Harbour Goolwa Sea Rescue Squadron, that the responsibility for the dredging is assigned to council to carry out such dredging, but if we do any dredging, we need to have another investigation, including assessment of the channel survey, water depth at lowest tide, the composition of material to be dredged, which may include hard rock, a seabed survey, and the extent of the dredging required, and can apply for funds to assist with this. I know that when we did the dredging several years ago, we had to get barges which came from Port Adelaide to put the dredging material on, and It was quite a costly and long drawn out exercise. But we do appreciate that channel does need to be dredged from time to time in order to keep its safety and allow access for larger boats. You do have a representative on the Boating and Infrastructure Committee.
Yes, we do.
And so what I'd suggest you do is, if the committee can provide us with some formal advice in relation to the needs of the Sea Rescue Squadron, that would be really appreciated, and it can come back to council through that committee.
That will be organised.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now have a deputation from Anthony Eden, President of the Victor Harbour Cricket Club. Anthony.
Thank you, Council, for letting us come in to present our case.
Our pleasure.
My name's Tony Eden. I'm President of the Victor Harbour Cricket Club, and we have Ali Bloomfield. She's on our committee. It's nice to see a lady being on the committee of a cricket club. They sort of straighten us out a little bit. All right. I'm here really on safety and hopefully for councillors, if they aren't aware, and I do have a picture, a Google Earth picture of the location of Victor Harbour Oval. I'm not sure whether any of you are aware of how the Victor Harbour Oval is set up, but anyway, I'll give you an explanation. We're here to discuss basically the safety of in particular our younger cricketers, with the closeness of the new bitumen road that was installed around the Victor Harbour Oval about 9-10 years ago. The nets of our cricket nets were installed in the late 90s when there was only a dirt track around the oval, and it was used mainly for access through to the bike ramp or dirt bike track, which are on the far side, and it was very rarely used and was not as close to our training area as the new road is. Now, on the side of our nets, the only access to Coolaroo Road was a walking access. Some 9 or 10 years ago, council bitumised the car park to solve major dust issues. If anyone was there around would have seen the dust issues that happened there. And they extended the road past their nets to give access to the oval from Coolaroo Road. This road was built very close to our training area. As a matter of fact, the edge of the road is the edge of our training area, some 2 feet basically away from where you got 8, 9-year-olds running around playing. At this time, most people accessed the car park, though, through George Main Road from the large roundabout by the council chambers, so there weren't that many cars using the bitumen road. With the construction of the new club rooms, access to the car park from George Main Road was removed, so all traffic now enters Coolaroo Road past our training area. At subsequent Oval Planning Group meetings, the Cricket Club has tried to renegotiate a new location of our nets on the Victor Harbour Oval with no success, mainly because wherever we suggested, the other numbers, the tennis club, football club, had issues with it, to the point that we were unsuccessful in trying to renegotiate a new area. So about some 18 months ago at a Oval Planning Group meeting, they unanimously agreed that the only way to solve the safety issue was to shift the road access going into the Victor Harbour Oval from Coolaroo Road away from our cricket nets. I'm here basically now in front of the meeting here to explain hopefully our safety issues, and also for the council and when looking at budgeting issues in the future, to raise its priority away from possibly low priority to a high priority, mainly because I personally don't want to tell some mum and dad that their 8-year-old chased the ball, because we can't stop them chasing a ball, no matter how hard we try, in front of a slow moving car. So that's our issue. I put it to the council, hopefully that it'll raise your priority. If you have any questions, I do have a picture of the road and the access to around the oval.
Thank you, Tony. I do. I've just been told that there is a budget bid that has been prepared that council will be discussing for the next budget, and so having your deputation in the front of councillors' minds when we discuss the next budget will be very helpful. Councillor Mann.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you very much for coming along tonight. I imagine you'd be a part of the Victor Harbour Oval Planning Committee,
Yes,
or
yes.
whatever the term is.
Yep.
In terms of the other members of that committee, are they all in support with what you're proposing?
Yes. I mean, we went to the tennis and basketball and football club. We thought the southern end of the oval would be ideal, but that's the only place they can to warm up for football, and for tennis and netball, that's their car parking area. So we couldn't go there. Can't go on the eastern side because you're right on the river just about. On the western side, we've got the car park, the high school. So where we are is basically where everyone has said that has to be. It has to be there.
Yeah.
But our safety issue is, if you've ever gone around the oval, the curb of the road is our boundary of our oval. So kids are running around 2-3 feet away from a car going past.
Thank you.
As much as we try to keep them away, I can't stop a child chasing a ball if he wants to chase a ball. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm happy to leave a photo, but I think most of you might have that Google Earth map on the oval.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll keep that in mind in our budget deliberations.
Much appreciated.
We have one further deputation, Richard Foggo and Steve Richardson from Steam Ranger.
Thank you very much for allowing us to bring a deputation to you tonight. My name is Steve Richardson. I'm the Customer Services Manager for Steam Ranger, and Richard Fogo, of course, as you know, is from Business Victor Harbour. I won't go into the history of the railway station. You've probably already read that. I come straight to the point. In the first 6 months of this financial year, Steam Ranger spent almost $700,000 of its own money in track upgrading along the railway line. And so money is very tight for us because we don't have any government money funding at all. All the revenue we raise is through ticket sales, full stop. What we're trying to do is improve our passenger facilities in Victor Harbour, because the railway plaza is brilliant, but the station looks very tired and very much abandoned. So we're trying to upgrade that. And the proposal that we're putting to the council is, I persuaded the board to do a dollar for dollar. If I can obtain to the tune of $30,000 from the council, the board will match it dollar for dollar so we can do something at the Victor Harbour station. The reason being is we have a lot of events coming down the tube from interstate and overseas and locally, of course. And we just want to make the railway plaza and the railway environment a lot smarter for the potential customers. At the moment, as you see in the presentation I've given you there, is that a lot of our own money is going to the track, but I'll be able to persuade the board to give some money to station upgrades, because at the end of the day, we need a track, but we also need passengers. And as the customer service rep, I want to improve the quality of the station and its environments at Victor Harbour, which is what we're trying to do. Just to give you an update of the figures that I gave you on slide 6, we had over 20,000 passengers for the December and January 2 months over that Christmas period. Slightly down. We had a couple of days we couldn't run because of the weather, but 20,000 is pretty much on par with the previous couple of years. So at this stage, we're envisaging that we will have around the same number of passengers this year, about 55,000 for the financial year.
No, please go on, Mr.
Okay.
My role, I've been a board member of Business Victor Harbour for 25 years, and we took it on as a project to assist them with this deputation, but also Steve will mention 2 of the major celebration events this year, as well as upcoming the next couple of years. You'll see there's a lot of visitations from interstate, overseas, and the promotional economic benefits for Victor Harbour are quite significant. So that's all I have to say.
So the segue there is this year is the 40th anniversary of the Cockle train. But the celebration actually is on the weekend of the 17th and 18th of October. We'll celebrate the Cockle train operation, and also it's the 100th birthday of the station. Records in 1926 were a bit sparse, but we believe it was opened with no ceremony about July, but we're going to put the two, we want to put the two things together. In October in 2026, we can celebrate the 100th year of the station, the 3rd station that is, and the 40th anniversary of the Cockle train. So that's any questions to my presentation.
Thank you very much for that. I'll just let you know that there is a budget bid that is going to council for the budget deliberations around providing some money to the Steam Ranger. And just as the Steam Ranger is sort of, as you said, an iconic part of Victor Harbour and the train station there, the council has put considerable amount of money into Railway Terrace to upgrade that, which is great, and that was helped with a grant from the state government as well, and also the council wanting to support the horse-drawn tram, which is part of that iconic heritage experience that links in very much with the Steam Ranger experience. So certainly the visitor experience with both Steam Ranger and the work that you do and the look of Railway Terrace and the buildings that you've got there, things that are very much appreciated by council, and we will be deliberating on how much money we do have to provide you in the next budget. A question from Councillor Henderson and then Councillor Mann.
Thank you for that, Steve. Obviously, you have a vision of what you need to do. I'm interested in what that vision is. What are the works that you need to do to spruce the station up, in other words?
Well, just to let you know, it is a heritage building, and our building manager is a little bit, I say, a little bit fanatical about those sort of things. There's some portions of the building they want to restore back to the 1920s condition. Matthew has worked with the Heritage SA because, as I said, it's a heritage building. Things like colours, to me, is a little bit out of there, but all I want is a nice building. But Matthew has gone in some detail of what the building will be restored to in the 1920s condition and the colour schemes and all that. And that's been done in conjunction with Heritage SA.
Councillor Mann.
Yeah, thank you. I'll probably regret asking this line of questioning, but so I see on there the Department of Environment and Water own the building currently, and it's probably, I imagine there's a whole story
Long
behind
story,
it. Yeah. I guess one thing from a budget consideration is it's much harder for council to provide you with an operating grant of here's 30 grand, because that increases the rates. And in terms of our operating budget,
Understand.
it's much easier to provide capital contributions that we can capitalise, but for us to capitalise it, we've got to own the asset. So I guess the question to administration is, would there be any instance in which the Department of Environment and Water, who probably forget they own this building, would gift it to council?
Through the Mayor, maybe another train of thought is that the Department of Environment and Water are currently offering up to $20,000 in heritage grants that close on the 19th of March and will be announced by May. So that, be announced in May. So there might be an opportunity, if you didn't apply for it, that council could apply for it for our part of our share of that.
It's an interesting exercise because the railway doesn't belong to us, and yet we've invested $700,000 into it. If we don't, under the licence, if we don't maintain the track and don't operate it in accordance with the regulations, we don't run. So we've invested, as I say, $700,000 this financial year, so far 6 months, in an asset we don't own. So I understand you. We understand your question.
Yeah. I guess it's more adding to, yes, we don't own it. It's not the security, but I think it's more from the way in which we could capitalise any expenses. And yes, if we could try and look at applying for that grant and offset our contribution, I think that's a good way of doing it. But would there be any interest in council in ever owning that building, or is it easier to keep it with the state government?
Through the Mayor, it's a state heritage building, so it would come with lots of complications. Might not be an asset, might be a liability.
Councillor Kemp.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Sorry, thanks, Richard. Just a question on timing. If the budget bid goes through in July, 3 months, would that be enough to restore the building, or do you need money sooner than July?
I've asked the same question of my building manager, and we will make sure it happens in the 3 months. But obviously, if funding comes before that, that'd be very much appreciated. Where Matthew's in the process of putting together a project plan to make sure that we meet the October long weekend, so that because the October long weekend is another very big and busy period for us in Victor Harbour. So I said, from my point of view as a customer manager, I'd like it done by the October long weekend. Now that's the objectives that we're setting ourselves.
Sorry, last one to administration. If we have it as a 30 grand budget bid, are we still able to apply for that 20 grand to offset it, even if it hasn't been endorsed as a budget by council, or could something be brought separately to council's next meeting?
Through the Mayor, we'd just have to check our eligibility because it's not our building. But in the past, we do apply for grants the year prior to receiving them, so we can inquire. It has to meet certain criteria about, like, you're protecting the fabric of the building and things like that. So that all you have to meet all the criteria in order to get the funding.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
We now move to questions from the gallery, and Frank Stankovic, I beg your pardon.
Good evening. Thank you for taking my questions, Mayor Jenkins and councillors.
This is my wife, Kate. We're here to represent Mount Brecon Estate. And following the last speakers, our questions flow well into what we're trying to achieve in terms of historical structures and their significance with this town of Victor Harbor. So our first question is the validity of a court order which has been deposited at the ERD court as ERD 268 of 2013, where Flinders Towers was versed the City of Victor Harbor. So would you please confirm the existence of this court order issued by Commissioner Nolan of the ERD court on the 19th of August 2014 to the City of Victor Harbor?
And absolutely, I can say yes, there's a court order in place.
Okay.
Which provides consent for the identified development.
Okay. So if that is the case, then the court order directs City of Victor Harbor to grant consent, as you mentioned. Now, in that court order, there are 20 conditions that have to be met by Flinders Towers Proprietary Limited. Has the City of Victor Harbor ensured those conditions outlined within that court order have been satisfied? If not, what steps will the City of Victor Harbor take to ensure that these conditions are met to the satisfaction implied by that court order?
Okay. So in granting consent, the court applied a number of conditions, which you've alluded to, which are outlined in the order. Responsibility for complying with those conditions rests with the applicant. Council does have statutory powers available to address non-compliance where it arises. However, the legislation provides Council with discretion in the exercise of those powers. If concerns are raised about whether a development is complying with its consent conditions, an authorised council officer can review the circumstances and determine any appropriate next steps in accordance with Council's enforcement policy. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Good evening.
My pleasure. We have no petitions, so we move now to item 9.1, which is outstanding resolutions. The recommendation is that Council receive and note the said resolutions. Do I have someone to move that way? Councillor Henderson, thank you. And seconding that, please. Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Do either of you want to speak to that? Anyone want to speak to that? All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. 9.2 is the mid-year progress update on the annual business plan. The recommendation being that Council receive and note the update for the 2025-26 annual business plan. Moving that way, please. Thank you, Councillor Henderson. And seconding that, thank you, Councillor Schiller. Do either of you have any questions? Does anyone have any questions? Oh, Councillor Henderson, sorry.
That's all right. Just a comment. Some of these budget items we spent quite a lot of money on, such as coastal protection, 4 million plus. I wonder how better we can advertise to our community how we spend our budget allocations, because a lot of what we do, we offer at least 68 services across the board, and some of our spending is not well known. I know we do our best when we send out the rates, we have a synopsis of the areas in which we spend funding, but unless people live near the coast, they may not be aware that we're spending money on coastal protection. For example, that's just an example. Also, the resurfacing of the outdoor courts. I'm just wondering, and it relates to a later item in the agenda about our communications. Our communications team do a fantastic job, and I know it's often a case of leading a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Many of our ratepayers only see footpaths, roads, rubbish collection. And I think we need to let our community know we are spending a lot of money in other areas that is benefiting our community, and we just need to get it out there.
I'm aware, Councillor Henderson, that both of those items that you spoke about have gone out in media releases. They've gone out in Victor Viewpoint. I've certainly spoken about both of them on the radio as well when I've done radio gigs. They've been in the local paper. As you said, we can always do better. And maybe that's something we need to talk with the communications team about, is how do we get those messages out more, but it's not from want of trying. And as you said, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't necessarily make it drink. But there's been a lot of money spent on a lot of infrastructure things. Coastal protection is one huge one, which is going to continue to need money from the council, need money from state government, because it is such an expensive but very, very important item. But thank you for your point. Are there any other questions or comments? I'll now put that to the group team. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The 2025-26 budget review, and the recommendation is that council approve the budget review, providing net capital expenditure of 16,897,400 and an operating deficit of 2,838,100, noting that this has been reviewed by the Audit and Risk Committee. Moving that way, please. Thank you, Councillor Henderson. And seconding, please. Thank you, Councillor Mann. Any questions or comments? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. The service level review program, there's two recommendations which I'm happy to do together. One, that council support amending the program to schedule the People and Culture Business Unit for review in 25-26 in place of the Finance Business Unit, noting that finance will be rescheduled for review the following year. And the second recommendation being that we note the updated review plan. Would someone like to move both of those recommendations en bloc? Thank you, Councillor Schiller. And seconding, please, Councillor Mann. Any questions? All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. 9.5, the discretionary rebate application from Best Life, Canterbury. Councillor Brayden, you moving that recommendation? Sorry, Councillor Mann. You're moving that recommendation and seconding that from Councillor Quinton. Do either of you want to speak to that? Councillor Mann?
Yeah, no, I'm more than happy to move the administration's recommendation that we don't support this. I was in fact very surprised to see them asking for more community money to help fund their operation. As the administration have outlined in the report, since our community is not able to charge our fixed charge of $495 per unit for every unit in their village, the state government effectively forced our community to provide a $155,000 subsidy per year. So for them to ask for an additional 75% subsidy, I think is a bit outrageous. If we were to look at doing this across the 5 villages that we'll soon have once the latest ones are built, there's a combined 1,512 units. Just from the subsidy that we'll be providing the villages, just from the fixed charge component will be $748,000 per year. So if we were to go and then provide another 75%, it'll be a significant cost on our community. And I think one of the other things to note is that some of these villages will have private pools, cinemas, bowling greens that our community won't be able to access, but our community is expected to subsidise them. I did love in the application how they set out that the community should subsidise them because their council rates have increased. I think it was about 600% in 4 years. I think 4 years ago they owned a vacant paddock, and now they're owning a land with close to what their aim is of 315 units. So I didn't think that was much of a consideration. I think in terms of we've had a lot of discussions around these residential and retirement villages, and I think that When there's no provision or contribution by these villages to help house our health and care workers, but instead injecting our community with an older demographic who are needing of house, but also are needing of increased health and care needs. I think these villages are contributing to that unskewed demographic, and it's the community to pick up the tab and try and do things to help attract and retain the health and care support. So I think the community's covering enough costs for them already, so I'm happy to not cover any more.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Councillor Quinton, did you want to speak? Does anybody want to speak to this? Councillor Kemp?
Yes, it's an interesting thing because there's two different acts that actually applies to these types of facilities. And the Residential Park Act, which is the Best Life is under, doesn't have to pay council rates, as you say. It's just a one-off charge they have to. But a Retirement Village Act covers other villages in the city, which have to, all the unit owners or occupiers all pay rates and fixed charge. So it's not a blanket across. So I don't want to get the wrong impression that we're having a go at all retirement villages. It's only the ones under the Residential Park Act which is not compliant, which I like to see them more compliant myself. Thank you.
Thank you. You've got a question, Councillor Mann? You'll close it? Yep, that's fine.
Yeah, no, I completely appreciate and agree with Councillor Kemp's point. And I think that what we found with the residential villages under the Residential Parks Act, they don't like being called retirement villages, even though from the community's perspective, they effectively operate in a similar way. There are some, as I understand it, retirement villages that pay a fixed charge and some that don't. It depends on how they're assessed. The five I was referring to are I guess Rosetta, you've got Best Life, going to have Ocean View, Ocean, and then the new Hometown Australia one on Tabernacle. As far as I understand, they're all residential villages. They exclude anyone under 50, 55, and they don't have to pay a fixed charge per unit in their village. So that's where that $748,000 loss of income that council is effectively covering if we were able to charge the fixed rate per unit and house like everyone else has to do. So yeah, I think it's an important distinction that's part of the narrative.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. That closes the debate. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried unanimously. The 9.6 is correspondence from the Ombudsman, and the recommendation is to receive and note the correspondence from the Ombudsman, reminding council members of their conflict of interest obligations. This correspondence has been sent to all councils in South Australia, and the Ombudsman is very clear that from a number of councils in South Australia, people are not reporting conflicts of interest, whether that be conflicts of material interest or whether that be a general conflict of interest, which also includes perceived conflict. So I'll take this opportunity to remind members that it's really important that we all declare any conflicts that we may have or that we think that we may have. If you think you may have a conflict and you perceive you may have a conflict and it's general, you still are able to stay in your chair and vote and take part in the debate. Just because you have a general conflict of interest does not mean to say that you have to leave the room, but you have to declare that general conflict. If you have a material conflict of interest, then you need to declare that and leave and not participate in the debate. If you are unclear at all about what a general conflict is or what a material conflict is, please go and have a talk. You can either chat to me or you can go and have a chat to Kyla Walker, the governance officer, who can reiterate what that is for you. So can I please have someone to move the recommendation that we receive and note this? Thank you, Councillor Henderson, and secondly, Councillor Mackenzie. Are there any discussion about this? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Environment and infrastructure, it's 12.1, Victor Harbour Yacht Club change rooms. There's two recommendations there, which I'll do together. Are you happy to move them en bloc? Is that a general conflict or a
It's
material conflict?
Both. I'm on the Yacht Club committee and a Yacht Club member, and I also live directly adjacent to the proposed infrastructure changes. So I will have a material conflict there.
Okay, so we'll give you a form to fill out and I'll call you back after this is finished. Thank you. So now we still have a quorum. Yep. So the council approved the capital budget transfer to enable the construction of new change rooms to be undertaken at the Victor Harbour Yacht Club with no increase to the capital budget. So that's just transferring from one budget to another. Acknowledging that the tender submissions are still being assessed, and if the final contract value is less than the budget, an adjustment will be made as part of the third review of council's overall budget. So there's those two recommendations. I'll take them on block. Moving Councillor Henderson, thank you. And I'll have a seconder for that, please. Thank you, Councillor Mann. Any questions or comments? Councillor Schiller?
These facilities are purely for the purposes of the yacht club. Are they going to be accessible to the public at all, or are they just for the yacht club?
Through the Mayor, they are for the yacht club, but they're used as part of their education program by a lot of school children.
Councillor McKenzie?
Just a question for administration. Should this go back out to tender if there is a budget increase at all, or has the tender process closed?
Through the Mayor, the process has closed, and it's been done in accordance with our procurement process, and we received multiple responses, and they're varying in, as it says in the report. That assessment has to be done because some of those responses were non-compliant responses and didn't address all of the requirements of the tender.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Do you want to close the debate? I'll now put this to the floor. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Katie, could you? Oh, thank you. We now move to item 12.2, the proposed road closure, Unmade Road Reserve Brown Hill. This is the first step in the mountain biking strategy and development of the mountain bike park. That recommendation, I'll take that as read because it's quite a long one and it's in 3 parts. Would somebody like to move that? Councillor Kemp moving that and Councillor Schiller seconding that. Do you want to speak to that, Councillor Kemp?
Yes, thank you. I just feel it's a great opportunity, and I think that once we get this up and running, it'll certainly bring a lot of tourism into Victor Harbour. Mountain biking is a very popular sport for recreational around the state, so I think it's a great project that we're looking forward to seeing completed, as you say, the first step into it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schiller? Anybody else want to speak to this? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. 12.3, and we discussed this at the last briefing, the Hindmarsh to Inman River Coastal Adaptation Master Plan Engagement Plan. And the recommendation is that Council approve the engagement process as presented in the Communications and Engagement Plan, which is attached. Thank you, Councillor Henderson, moving that way and seconding that, please. Thank you, Councillor Kemp. either of you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, it is just about the engagement process, and this process is to inform the preparation of the actual master plan. And the point of this communication process is to build an understanding about the risks associated with coastal erosion, excuse me, sea level rise and flooding, and to also collect information that improves the decision making as with regards to our plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp.
Yes, I think, as I said, we had a great discussion at our information briefing session. I think the beauty about this plan is it's a three-stage community. So it's in 3 stages. So community have plenty of opportunity to have input into the plan.
Thank you. Yes, I think it's really important that the community are involved in this. And I think part of that goes to Councillor Henderson's earlier comment about often the community don't realise the amount of work and cost some of these things that we need to do. But the more they're involved in it, then the more they'll understand what it's all about. Any further questions or comments? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. We now move to minutes of council committee meetings, the Disability Access and Inclusion meeting of 5th of February. We have 3 recommendations there, which I'm happy to take on block in relation to the minutes, preparing budget bids for the annual business plan next year, for the delivery of short-term DDA compliance improvements, and the preparation of the budget bid to uptake major upgrades for Karakalinga House. Moving that way, Councillor Schiller, and seconding that, Councillor Henderson. Do either of you want to talk to the recommendation?
It's good to see that we've had our audit, and this has been a long time coming for the Disability Access and Inclusion Committee. This has been on the minds of committee members for several years, and one of our original or quite long-standing members brought this to our attention many years ago, and it's come to the point now. Part of the recommendation is to look at tidying up our existing toilets, to look at things like even you look at your soap dispenser. Everyone thinks that that's a simple thing to get to, but if you're in a wheelchair and it's put in the wrong location, you can't reach across to that. So this is a really important thing to get, to have a look at the ways we can tidy up our existing toilets, and then prioritise the 2 toilets that we will look at upgrading, because this is just a basic dignity thing that any person within our community should have the ability to have these facilities in an accessible manner.
Thank you, Councillor Schiller. Does anybody else want to speak to this? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. The Victor Harbour Horse Tram Authority December budget review, and the recommendation is that council approves the December budget review. Would someone like to move that way, please? Thank you, Mr. McKenzie. Seconding that. Thank you, Councillor Mann. Any questions? Discussion? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just trying to read my writing. I scribbled on here because we've got a change of plan and I can't read my own. Bring back. Let's see. Yep. Yep, that's right. So matters of urgency we'll actually put at the end, because we do have a matter of urgency in confidence. Questions on notice we'll do now. But there are no questions on notice. Questions without notice we'll do now. Any questions without notice? No. Okay. So now we go to motions without notice. So of which we've got a few. So Councillor Quinton.
Got a couple. First one is that council advocate to national parks to refrain from moving the public litter bins at Waipinga and Parsons beaches located within the national parks.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
So there's some signage out at the national park car parks at the moment advising that the litter bins are going to be removed in April. And it's working towards a strategy which I think council's a part of as well in terms of trying to reduce the amount of litter produced in public places and encourage people to take their waste home with them, which I commend. However, in the national parks, I feel like this is going to be a very unwise move because I cannot see that fishermen are going to be taking home their smelly pilchard and cockle bags home with them to dispose of properly. And at the moment, they are often discarded around the bins or in the car park and a lot of the time on the beach themselves. So the waste problem is just going to compound significantly, I think, if you take away these public bins. So I'd like council to advocate to keep them in place, please.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Do you want to speak to that? No. Does anybody want to speak to that? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Another motion without notice? Thank you.
This is just following on from the deputation from the Sea Rescue Squadron. And the motion would be that council requests the CEO to undertake an investigation into the feasibility of the options presented by the Sea Rescue Squadron at their deputation, including assessment of the site located at the corner of Jagger Road and Rosemary Court in Canterbury for the proposed purpose. Is that too fast?
I'll just check to see whether or not that's going to need a budget. It will need a budget. Okay. Can you make that a motion on notice for the next council meeting? Because it needs a budget to actually do that investigation. I won't accept that as without notice. Thank you. So now we go to, we've got more. You've got yours, Brayden.
Yeah, thank you. I can read that out if you're happy.
Yep. Thank you.
So the first motion without notice is the City of Victor Harbor formally invite the Great Southern Amateur Basketball Association GSABA committee, basketball club leaders and any interested basketball players to an open briefing to discuss the reasons for the public-private partnership, the chosen operating model and the next steps due to the inconsistencies between our previous and ongoing discussions with the GSABA and the recent positions taken by the GSABA in state media.
Yep, I think if I was able to second that, I would, because I think that the discussions that we've had have been very positive, but the media reporting of where the GBSA stands now has not been positive at all, and I don't think they realise that what we are actually offering and the amount of time and effort that has gone into to looking at that. So. Yeah, seconding that, Councillor Quinton, thank you very much. Do you want to speak to that, Brayden?
Yeah, if I could. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, no, completely agree with your points. I think, there was, an article recently in the Advertiser where the GSABA president was quoted looking at the precinct and the sort of next steps with that one. And, one thing I guess I did like about the GSABA's response was their strong advocacy for their interests, and I think that's very important as we go into the next stages around negotiations with in relation to the lease and protecting their interests as part of those negotiations. But I think it's very important that the council and the GSABA and the users are on the same page and are on the same team with those negotiations. There were some very disappointing statements that the GSABA made in that article. I think one of them was, it's not like councils haven't built rec centres before around South Australia and they're operating them, so it's possible. And it was also quoted, the GSABA president as saying that they were disappointed councillors had chosen to hand over the precinct management. Now, there's been a lot of active discussions with the GSABA, gymnastics, the key stakeholders over many years in relation to this project, and every step of the way going through it. There's been opposition that they've had, and council has worked tirelessly to address that opposition time and time again. And I think it's important that we can get back on that same page. And if maybe there's a lack of clarity with some members of the GSABA around why we've gone down this pathway, why we chose the operating model we did, and what those next steps are. And I think it's better for us to engage with them earlier and get them in the room and have that discussion again. And if we have to have it 100 times, I think we have it 100 times. I think part of those discussions we'll have is looking at, the history of council spending 8 to 10 years trying to advance a new rec centre for our basketball community and sporting groups, how we've looked at traditional builds and the costs are now so exorbitant in the construction and operation of community facilities that it's hard for councils to deal with them in traditional ways. We'll look at if they want to use the existing rec centre for the next 10 to 20 years until our community can afford to do it in the standard way, then that might be the option. But again, some of the options we've looked at is that might require, on today's figures, $7 to $10 million of state and federal government funding to deliver. And we have greatly struggled to even get $4 million out of the state and federal government over the last year. So I don't think the money will ever come from them. We'll also look at why we've gone for the operating model we have to reduce the risk on our community by having Belgravia take on that lease. Looking at the initial cost estimates of if council was to run the whole facility instead of Belgravia, it would cost our community an extra $1.2 million a year. Even when basketball and gymnastics weren't happy about Belgravia, we pushed incredibly hard to cut out the gymnastics component so we could keep them happy and keep things moving. And there's been a lot of tireless effort gone into this project, and it is disappointing to hear some of these comments. And I think it's in the benefit of all the basketball players to come and learn more and to understand and ask the questions and get back on the same page around things, because I've been pushing for this and the council has been pushing this for many years, and we're getting tired, I guess, and we can only push so much more. So I appreciate if people would support this.
Thank you. Councillor Quinton, do you want to speak to this? No? Does anybody want to speak to it? No? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. And I think that's a really good idea to have the basketball community and the whole basketball committee listening firsthand at why council has made this decision, because it's not a decision that was taken lightly. It was a lot of information weighed up, debated, discussed, further questions asked, and in the end, elected members voted democratically, and this is the decision that the council made. So I think it's a good idea to explain that process. And you have another motion?
Yep. So the second motion without notice is the City of Victor Harbor write to Premier Peter Malinauskas and Opposition Leader Ashton Hearn, requesting that Victor Harbor homes be excluded from their proposed baby boomer / downsizers stamp duty exemption plans due to the significant lack of access to GPs and health, medical and aged care support that our current residents are facing, and our community's endorsed mission to urgently lower our average age from 60 to ensure Victor Harbor's future survival and prosperity.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Do you want to speak to that, Councillor Mann?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jenkins. Some members may have seen over the past few weeks and months different announcements in relation to stamp duty. The Liberals came out with a position around a 15 grand benefit for people looking to downsize. More recently on the weekend, the Labor government came out effectively saying, if you're over 60 in Adelaide and you want to sell your house, you can come to Victor and buy something. As long as it's smaller in land, you can pay no stamp duty up to a $2 million purchase price. For years now, we've been fighting actively around how we can attract and retain a younger demographic down here, because our current residents, we're hearing every week from them that they can't get into their GPs, they can't access the health and care and medical support that they need. They're having to travel to Adelaide. And what these, whilst there's benefit, and I note there's benefit for certain members of the community, particularly those up in the city who may want to look to have the sea change, we've got to think of our current residents and how they can, how they're going to be access the support they need into the future, when there's just going to be more and more incentives for those over the age of 60 to come down to Victor. You know, at the end of the day, this is a position that we can put up. Now, like everything will be ignored. I doubt the state government would even take much notice. But I think if we think strategically and pragmatically, this puts on notice to both major parties, or major and minor parties, depending on how we look at it, that there is a significant lack of access to health and care support down in Victor. That it's all well and good if they're wanting to move all the over 60s out of the city and put them in the regions, but they've got to provide the regions with this health, care and medical support. We've heard recently around already expanded hospital emergency departments full, and the investment we need and the ability to attract and retain those doctors, those nurses, those people who are going to provide the care is where we need to be focusing our attention. And we've launched our stamp duty petition. We're trying to just get the government to remove up to $35,000 for first home buyers so they can get into their first home. But they're happy to let those with potentially asset-rich homes have up to $100,000 of stamp duty exemption. So I think this is sending a clear message. Now, whether you agree with it or not, the reality is will be ignored. It's not going to change anything, but I think it really sends a strong message to the state government and opposition that they need to look at investing seriously in our regions if this is the path they want to go down. So I hope you can support it.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Councillor Mackenzie, do you want to speak to this?
No, nothing too much more to add. I think Councillor Mann summed it up well. That if anything, it will be a wake-up call to the state government to realise that they need to invest in their regions, in infrastructure and the services that are offered.
Thank you. Councillor Schiller, you had your hand up, and then Councillor Kemp.
I won't be supporting this motion. I believe that we should be holding our fire when we're advocating to state government, whether it be opposition or the existing government, and picking our battles. We are only 17,000 population here in Victor Harbor, and this is relating to the whole of our state. The two policies that, or outcomes that the opposition and the Labor Party have merit in different ways. And I would say that downsizers have just as much right to have an opportunity to do that, as we have advocated for a stamp duty exemption for young people in the region. So I won't be voting for this, because I just think we don't have, we shouldn't be trying to dictate what a state government or opposition is trying to do. This is their free will to put their policy up, and then we'll vote in a month's time to see who managed to get their policy through. So I just think we're dabbling in an area where we shouldn't be advocating.
Thank you. Councillor Kemp.
Yes, I won't be supporting this either, because even though Councillor Mann's made some very good points, But I think it's just not Victor Harbour. I think it's statewide with medical access for our population as you go ambulance ramping at all the hospitals. So I don't think it's just unique to us. And I don't think it's the council's position to dictate, to who comes and lives here. We want to be a welcoming city to allow people to come and do that. If the government helps that in that respect, I mean, that is fantastic. When the baby boomers downsize, that opens up the houses for young other people to purchase into, and especially up in the metropolitan areas. But also it can apply down here where we've got a lot of baby boomers still living in their own homes, and which can free up some of the housing down here for younger families as well.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. Any further debate? Close the debate, Councillor Mann.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jenkins. Yeah, no, completely appreciate the points around the chamber, and I think my stance on council picking our battles, I think there's a number of things we should be fighting for, and I think a balanced demographic and a healthy community that provides the right mix of services and health and care support is a battle that I'm happy to fight every day of the week. I think that, in terms of what we're asking, it's just for Victor Harbour, 5211, they can get their downsizers exemption elsewhere. Victor is incredible, and everyone's going to want to retire down here anyway, regardless of whether they get a stamp duty exemption or not. And that's what we're seeing every day. I think one of the big things is the flow-on effects with these Adelaide-centric policies, is that already the development we're seeing in Victor, the new development, is either residential/retirement villages, or it's Torrens title developments that are catering to an older, wealthier demographic. And I think this will only mean the developers will focus more on that over 60s, as they'll make sure that the blocks we have down here are extra small, so they're smaller than wherever they're selling, so they can get the stamp duty exemption, and they can put whatever encumbrances they want to make it as beautiful as possible and drive up that price, because the over 60 can pay up to $2 million and get a stamp duty exemption and save $100,000 of that fee. So even though we are 17,000, I think we are leading the fight in a number of different avenues, and I think this is sending a clear message to the state government that if they want to do this, and they need to invest in our community, invest in things that attract and retain young people, and invest in our health and care support for our current residents who we shouldn't be forgetting. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll put that to the floor now. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. We now move to 18.2. So now we go into confidence, and the rest of the agenda will be in confidence. We've got one motion on notice around strategic land investigations from Councillor Mann in confidence, and then we move straight into confidential items. So the first recommendation for 18.2 is that council move into confidence because the information of which would be disclosed would be unreasonable disclosure of information concerning the negotiation for potential purchases of land between council and another public authority. Somebody like to move that way? Councillor Mann, thank you. And seconding that, Councillor Henderson, thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Are you in favour, or you're in favour? Can we do that again? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much to the gallery. We are now moving into confidence, and it's appreciated that you're there. And thank you for those listening at home as well.